Hello there, my name is Richy Srirachanikorn. I'm a master's student of sociology here at Concordia University. I am now recording sort of a post-event presentation that I was able to give today at the first colloquium on digital humanities set up by the Centre de recherche interuniversitaire sur les humanités numériques, or CRIHN, at Université de Montréal, who kindly accepted and allowed me into their network today. So my talk will be on refractive nostalgia, which is a concept I've been working on lately. The title of the talk is Lost Again, Refractive Nostalgia and the Generative Potential of Memory. I have to give my thanks where it's due, first and foremost, at the Technoculture Arts and Games Research Center, or TAG for short, here at the Milieu Institute, specifically at Concordia University, plus the Minecraft Cabal, the SHIRK Insight Grant funded project that is led by the inimitable doctors Bart Simon and Darren Worschler, who are here at Concordia University as well. I also have to give my thanks to my friends at the Nostalgia Network, whose success I have to give all credit to them. And finally, for Dr. Katharina Niemeyer and her support throughout this process of learning about nostalgia. So thank you so much for that. So without further ado, I'm going to begin this so that I can nostalgize it about it for later. Fantastic. Great. Love computers. Okay. Does it work? Oh, no. Goodness. There you go. Since this morning, how often did you go back in time or forward into the future? Perhaps you checked your phone to see what occurred while you were slumbering away through your friend's Instagram or Snapchat stories. Then, on the way here, you looked at your Apple Watch or your smartphone to see what time it was, imagining the time ahead of you, the commute to the Université de Montréal, who and what the speakers will be like, wondering if there will be cookies, or if we're lucky, some fruit during the coffee break. In both cases, you relied on some form of technology to tell you something you missed or something you may come back to miss. As such, we are able to encounter what will be and what was lost to time with our technologies. Svetlana Boym, writing on the future of nostalgia, would argue that just remembering something is not being nostalgic, because for her, one is nostalgic not for the past the way it was, but for the past the way it could have been. It is active memory work, working with what has happened to form what has never happened before. Yet, because we are now here and not somewhere else, nor are we with specific others or that they are no longer with us, that imagined past or future is perpetually lost. Thankfully, we live in a time where we are constantly reminded of the retro devices, bygone consoles, wartime machines, and pre-modern ephemera, that we are now able to not only reminiscent, but remember a time that, developmentally speaking, we should be able to, and historically speaking, we would not be able to. Well, I was born in the 2000s, so obviously. As such, digital nostalgia is capable of what Dr. Katharina Niemeyer at UQAM calls digital nostalgia, which is the ability that these devices have at reminding us of its nostalgic contents, your favorite movie or your favorite video game, but also the fact that we are nostalgic for the machine itself. Without the VHS television that played horror movies, that childhood sleepover at your friends would not have been so horrifying. Or without the NES in your living room, it would not have been a makeshift hunting spot for you to shoot pixelated ducks over an annoying laughing dog. Thus, Boym's original comment is perhaps revisable. Maybe we can be nostalgic for the past the way it was, because our online communities, our university's media research labs, or our individual pastime hobbies have allowed for us to replicate and revive objects of nostalgia to its ultimate original form. This is what Boym calls restorative nostalgia, or the promise of bringing back a long gone past, teetering on a future that will someday materialize. Relatedly, most of us have undergone some sort of restorative nostalgia during the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom classrooms, Twitch concerts, FaceTime family meetings, and social media live videos all drove our pursuit for the past that was, and one that could have been. Arguably, it hurts even more because it existed, it happened. And now we want to exist like that again. Katharina Niemeyer writes in 2016, even if time passes the same way from a physicist's point of view, some of us no longer have the patience to let our experiences form into what we once called memories. Simply, we could not wait any longer because too many things are already lost. Thus, in a media culture heavily fixated on the past and the future, we are constantly lost again by instantly making the present moment a past present. For example, me standing up right now, snapping a picture while the panelists are speaking, and posting on my LinkedIn saying, I had a blast at the Centre de Recherche Interuniversitaire de Humanity Numerique Symposium. It was a great honor to have met so many people. Or a future present that I later plan to live, i.e. me fixating on capturing other panelists on camera and not listening to them, so that later when I share this with my supervisor, I am able to relive this moment of feeling included and important, even though the symposium has already finished. As such, one can use the nostalgic potential of digital technologies to not only be reminded of something, but to strategically remember or intentionally forget things that they will later experience. In the case of video games, Tim Wolf and colleagues call it the time machine. Needless to say, these time machines may restore what was lost in its perfect form, but it cannot change the fact that this experience is a past that was. No matter how exciting it may seem, the second visit to a restaurant whose dish you first fell in love with is always a bit different than the first time. Not lesser, not worse, but not the first time. In this same strand, restorative nostalgia cannot make the time machine, that's loud like that, of the video game, the photo book, or any other devices experience this past as when they were experiencing it for the first time, as a future. It cannot be a past that could have been because it has already become. Thus, Boehm remarks that nostalgia cannot be captured even by the most advanced technological gadgets, because longing is connected to the human predicament in the modern world, end quote. So, to acknowledge that retrieving what was lost exactly the way it was is no longer possible is what Boehm calls reflective nostalgia. Consequently, reflective nostalgics who keep hitting dead ends may turn to the lucrative nature of restorative nostalgia, which promises you a visit to the past perfect that one strives to realize in the future, says Boehm. Unfortunately, restorative nostalgia does not allow you to strive for it. It gives it to you right away. Here's a trip down Minecraft memory lane with the purchase of this Steven Creeper Lego set for $19.99 plus tax. Even for the die-hard restorative nostalgics, such as Paris in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, or the breathtakingly realistic Notre Dame in Assassin's Creed Unity, the former may promise French players a future where their homeland is battling the Americans in the capital city, yet they will be disappointed because they cannot play as the French, and the Eiffel Tower will always fall. Moreover, after the 2019 fire incident at the Notre Dame, historians and gamers were hopeful that the digitally restorative counterpart will aid the official reconstruction. Alas, this was scrapped because the Notre Dame in Assassin's Creed Unity was not built the way it was, but the way it could have been for players to be able to climb, hide, and rappel inside the landmark. Simply put, the internal structures were never the same to begin with. In these two examples, restorative nostalgia promises you a visit to the past or future, perfected by the computer's memory, but it never promised you a visit to your own individual memory of visiting the Notre Dame when you were younger, or to the future of the French-America War where you had a fighting chance. With this, Boehm notes that, quote, computer memory is independent of affect and the vastitudes of time, politics, and history. Everything has the same digital texture, end quote. How then do we respond to this? Well, according to Niemeyer and Keightley, by judging, ranking, and politicizing our nostalgias as good, bad, offensive, right, or wrong. In their research of a Facebook page profiting over restorative nostalgic memes, videos, and photos, commenters furiously defended their own standards for what qualifies as a worthy nostalgic memory, and as such, who qualifies as a real nostalgic based on their comments. This leaves us lost in internet debates that never end, and the technologies that we are lost again with because we don't want things to end. And so here I ask, if our fixations of the past and future have left us constantly lost again, then what can be found from this process? I argue that nostalgia has the generative potential for something to be gained in the process of costs, consequences, and sometimes regrets. At Concordia University, I work with Dr. Bart Simon and Dr. Darren Werschler, who have utilized Minecraft, the most popular game of all time, to be able to help us understand our relationships with the most potent concepts in our history and daily life. Concepts such as modernity, which everyone hears of, but very few understand what it means. During the pandemic, the professors decided to teach their class entirely on Minecraft. Sprinkled with readings on modernity, nostalgia, and aesthetics, students paired modernity the way it was, as described by old dead authors, into a reimagination of modernity the way it could have been inside their Minecraft worlds. Very quickly, however, students came to realize that it was not so easy to play towards a utopia devoid of capitalist exploitation, modern colonial thought, or the hyper-extraction of resources. Minecraft never demands of them to play it this way, yet villages were raided, lands were deforested, animals were put in meat factories, and monumental amounts of pollution and waste were left behind. How is this related to nostalgia? Well, firstly, Minecraft was the perfect medium to bridge something so archaic with something so contemporary. Century-long concepts of modernity and capitalism that still haunt us today. The nostalgia of the game itself, per Niemeyer's digital nostalgia, and the content of the game being once childhood memories of Minecraft, provided a personal form of nostalgia where the stakes were high because they were real. I am not saying that because modernity and capitalism exists in real life, the use of Minecraft as a game in the digital thus became real too. No. Instead, I am saying that the individual memory of both modernity and Minecraft is real because they exist in the person's past and future. And thus, the nostalgia is real. It is not sold, promised, or mourned at them. These things are very much around, felt for, and thus capable of change. As students realized what they lost from the readings was a true understanding of the past, detailing modernity's effects, what was found with Minecraft, a game in which millions of players are lost again and every day, is the future of that past, which we now live and call the present. Thus, the personal and creative component of individual memory allowed for something as collective as the memoirs of modernity to be understood and nostalgized deeply. Another fond example I have is the massively multiplayer online role-playing game Club Penguin, which lasted from 2005 to 2017. The premise of the game was simple. You waddle around and meet new friends. Every month, the island would go through slight change, adding new items, decorations to match the theme of whatever party was being hosted. Naturally, penguins like myself would rush to buy whatever items they could, since afterwards, there is no guarantee that these items will ever return again. And so the motivations to collect these objects, which have not yet become rare, all point to nostalgia in action, that we were so willingly wasting, giving away, or losing the hours, our time with family, and our present to materialize a future we planned and played to later live. More candidly, a bunch of kids worldwide were nostalgizing for a future where they could have been hailed for the rarity of their penguins decades from then. In December 2007, however, this all changed. That Christmas, the Club Penguin team decided to donate a sum of their profits to 3 charities, and penguins could vote on its proportion by giving away their virtual coins. What was found was not a generation of children philanthropists, but for myself, the newfound friendships and deep debates I had with my middle schooler friends about whether the environment, food security, or healthcare was more deserving of aid. This nostalgia was year-round. After December, my friends and I were still nostalgizing about the beautifully decorated Club Penguin Island. Then mid-year, our conversations shifted to the present that the trees, children, and families may now have because of said donations. And later, we would be nostalgizing for that year's Christmas party and the Coins for Change event in the middle of October. Who does that? That's an ad lib, by the way. From the hours and coins that were personally lost, what was found is a generativity of collective and individual memories, which were never overshadowed by the reflective, because we were eager and we kept the hype going, or by the corrective, restorative nostalgia that one must be nostalgic about throwing away virtual coins only within December. These nostalgic examples of Minecraft and Club Penguin did not fixate on what was or what could have been, but what has already begun. That is the generative potential in which I am interested in. And this is what I call refractive nostalgia. Here, I situate my research with Boehm's parting gift, creative nostalgia. Crucially, It has to originate from the individual's own present, and it has to deal with the temptations of the reflective and restorative creatively. In the two examples I gave, the Minecraft students had to get social and creative in how they reimagined a world without the memory of capitalism or modernity, things which we are constantly reminded of and are trying so hard not to forget until we have them rid. For the Club Penguin folks, the nostalgia that came from the Coins for Change event has been featured in almost every iteration of the virtual world. CP private servers featured it during Christmas time. The University of Greenwich Club Penguin Society hosted their own Coins for Change, amassing some British pounds for donation to real-world charities. And notably, after moving on from Club Penguin, some of the original developers started a new virtual world where its One Warm Coat Foundation featured a similar legacy of letting its players donate by losing the time and effort to create and submit fan art. In return, Party Parrot World would donate $5 per piece. As you may have noticed, I am referring to these examples that are occurring in the present, yet even speaking now, I am nostalgic about nostalgizing about it later. What is common of these nostalgic efforts is that the personal, the creative, and the social are all retained. Nothing else and no one else dictated a past or present for the individual to begin. Thus, refractive nostalgia goes through the changes of memory work with the three things intact. Ideally, and this is a key word here, ideally, it is practiced and maintained version of Boehm's creative nostalgia, which, quote, reveals the fantasies of the age, and it is in those fantasies and potentialities that the individual future is born. And so, like Boehm's The Future of Nostalgia, I now urge a nostalgia for the future as a call for the digital humanities to reconsider their creative methods around nostalgizing the present, the past, and the future, avoiding the other lucrative too. If nostalgia has taught us anything at all, it should be this, that like the number of collaborators it took to actualize and have the symposium actualizing in the moment and later, nostalgia cannot be captured. And even if it could, it will never be done singularly. Because of this, nostalgia is always oscillating between what has become and what will be. In a sociologist's point of view, with refractive nostalgia, the individual is empowered by a collective generativity that is traceable to their own personal, creative, and social memories. In other words, one should no longer be constantly lost again for the past or the future they plan to live, but to be able to live towards their future and from their past with the gift of nostalgia that we call the present. And that is the state of the union. So I hope you enjoy it. And I better get back to nostalgizing about not checking my notifications. Thank you so much.